Hello, now you can hear me. Yes. All right, let's do it. 5 minutes. Hi, I'm Kaitlin Maud. I work in a field called cultural insight, so I'm not in the music industry. But when I heard that Ignite was happening during music, I thought that this would be a perfect opportunity to talk about something, a cultural phenomenon that is near and dear to my heart, which is boy bands. One of the things that I produce in my work as a strategist and researcher is called a taxonomy. Very big scientific word for what is just classification and systems of classification. And so what I'm going to attempt today is a taxonomy of boy bands, which sounds like that could be really easy and fun, except it's not. For us to classify boy bands, we have to first agree on a definition of a boy band. And it turns out there is no agreed upon definition of what a boy band is or when it started. And so I am going to attempt to define it through different ways of classifying. You all with me? Yeah. Awesome. So one of the most hotly debated topics is whether or not these guys, the Beatles, are a boy band. If you think they are, raise your hand. If you are saying it is young men that make pop music, then yes, the Beatles are a boy band. Band does imply that they play instruments. So are bands like Aerosmith, Maroon 5, 5 Seconds of Summer, and Jonas Brothers. But something about having Joe Jonas in the same category as Steven Tyler just didn't sit right with me. So I decided to get a little bit more specific and focus on young men that sing and dance. Then we're starting with bands like The Temptations and Jackson 5 and Wham. Starts to feel like we're getting somewhere, right? Then I'm like, that's just not what people picture, though. They don't really picture this as a boy band. So I think a lot of people picture bands that were curated or manufactured, put together by a manager or producer. NSYNC, Backstreet Boys, 5 from London, and Menudo from Puerto Rico. And then sometimes you think about bands that were manufactured on TV, such as O-Town from Making the Band, or One Direction that was put together on X Factor by Simon Cowell. You can start to see how our taxonomy begins to take shape. We see all these different ways of classifying information, which I think is really exciting as a strategist and data nerd. But I think what's more exciting is thinking about how other people will use the taxonomy. How can they look at this and get inspired and excited? And one of the questions I get when I tell people I'm talking about boy bands is like, aren't boy bands fake? I think there is a subgenre of TV boy bands that were made for TV, so Big Time Rush and Together. Those would be fake boy bands. We'll add them to the chart. And then I start to get questions about well, what about hip hop? Are there hip hop boy bands? Maybe. That could be bands like Tribe Called Quest, Run DMC. Is NWA a boy band? I don't know. In R&B, we have Boyz II Men. We have Color Me Bad. Yeah, I think that's pretty cool. We can also categorize boy bands by geography. My hometown of Boston boasts New Edition, New Kids on the Block, LFO. The UK has Westlife, who are huge, BB Mac. South Korea, of course, the hotbed of boy band talent with BTS, Monsta X, and Super Junior. But then we start to look at all the things that are boy band adjacent. So then we could have a dotted line to girl groups. Groups such as TLC are not entirely dissimilar from where we started with the Beatles, if you look at it this way. We also have spinoffs. So solo artists like Harry Styles got their start in boy bands and kind of have their own subcategory as boy band adjacent. If we're going to talk about spin-offs, we have to go back to my hometown of Boston because Belle Biv DeVoe spun off from New Edition, and New Kids on the Block formed a supergroup with Backstreet Boys called NKOTBSB, although no one can seem to tell me what that was about. What's really interesting about a taxonomy is it's not just how we categorize the data, but how the data starts to show relationships. So there's a line between Harry Styles and Pussycat Dolls because he allegedly dated Nicole Scherzinger, and there's a line between Aerosmith and Run DMC because they collaborated on Walk This Way. I don't know how to explain it, but some of this is just gut feel, and I feel like Ed Sheeran is a boy band, so I'm putting him on the taxonomy. Something about him gives boy band vibes. In the end, what I love about doing work like this, it is just as much art as it is science. Up here, there's some data, but it's really about the story that the data tells. And to me, what I want to drive home is that work like this is about the process. The process of exploring definitions in data is really how we start to understand a new subject, whether that's boy bands or something else. That's my time. I'm Kaitlin Maud. Thank you so much.